What up, long haulers? This is Lumi, and I'm back for another Artifact 2.0 discussion. And today I'll be talking about the blog post that was posted by devs on April 20th, talking about the initiative system as well as the mana system. So right from the get-go, they tell you that the initiative rules haven't changed much, and neither did the mana rules. Like, you still start with 3 mana, and then you go up 1 by turn. The big difference between Artifact 2.0 and the Artifact 1 and how these apply to the both games is how you have now essentially 1 board instead of 3 boards. Artifact 1, you would play out your turn on lane 1, and then action shifts over to lane 2, and then lane 3. In Artifact 2, you essentially have 1 big board, that's kind of how I think of it, divided into 3 different sections. And when you take your 1 turn, you essentially get to play on all 3 boards with your same hand, with your same mana pool, as well as the same initiative. So by combining everything into 1 board, it makes, like in the last video I mentioned, it makes things a lot easier to visualize. But more importantly, I added a little, here's my talking points. Initiative is now nowhere as important as before. So in Artifact 1.0, initiative I thought was the most skill testing thing in the game. What really distinguished between the really top players and the not so good players was that the top players really knew when it was important to keep skipping their plays to retain initiative, and then when to really just forego initiative and just play cards from their hands. The initiative is not nearly as important now for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is that you have a lot fewer times where initiative only matters, because there is no lane to lane initiative. There's only turn to turn initiative. So before, if you really needed to cast Annihilation on lane 2, you would have to give up initiative on lane 1 and perhaps even on lane 3 the previous turn, right? You have to like keep initiative for multiple lanes to make sure that you cast a spell where it matters. Now, if you want to cast Annihilation on turn 4, you probably have to cast very few spells in turn 3, but still you will still cast some stuff. The other reason that I think initiative is not nearly important is that you don't get locked out from playing cards nearly as much. And what I mean by that is, in Artifact 1, if you have 1 hero on the first lane, right, and your opponent had initiative, and they cast Coup de Grace and they kill your hero, well, you're just locked out from doing anything on lane 1. In similar scenario, in Artifact 2, let's say if they play Coup de Grace on your lane 1, well, it sucks for you that you can't cast spell on lane 1, but you could still use your mana and your cards to affect the other 2 boards, even when they kill your heroes on lane 1. That's only one of the reasons. In the most recent shopping blog that they posted, they also talked about a new item called Blink Scroll. Let's see. Most consumables, including Town Portal Scroll, has been removed from the game completely. You now get a similar item, Blink Scroll, the first time you bring each tower health to half, right? Blink Scroll works like a Blink Dagger, but are consumed on use. Going back to the scenario where I pointed out, where you have a hero on the first lane, and you don't have initiative, and they cast Coup de Grace, right? You lost your hero. If you have items like Blink Scroll or Blink Dagger, you'll still be able to move a hero into that lane after they kill your hero, right? So the fact of getting initiative first to go for a hero kill is not nearly as important in Artifact 1. So I believe that in Artifact 2, initiative is no longer the skill testing thing. I'll talk about what the skill testing thing I think is in Artifact 2 after I go through the other 2 points. But by making the initiative system a lot more simpler and a lot less frequent, keep in mind that in the old Artifact, on every 1 major round, you had about 3 to 4 different shifts in terms of initiative. So like every single board, you have to think about initiative. Now you have to think about it 3 times fewer because it only happens round to round. An initiative system, once you get the system, is very deep and very nice, and I like that a lot. But for beginner players, it never feels very satisfying to learn. You learn the initiative system by really trial and error, right? I remember one of my first few games in Artifact, I would kind of just play a bunch of cards on the first lane, not thinking about lane 2. And then as soon as we jump to lane 2, they just annihilate me. And I just feel bad, right? I don't feel good learning about initiative system, or rather in that case, I didn't keep initiative. Also, the new games are faster. Now, this doesn't really have much to do with the initiative system. It has something to do with the mana system. So let's actually look at the new mana system. Each action costs at least 1 mana. This is factual. Again, if we look at the new shopping block, you see this little 1 on the top left-hand corner. That refers to the mana cost of using item. Yes, not only do you have to pay 10 gold, in this case to buy the Force Staff, you have to pay 1 mana to equip that item as well. And you can see that some items have an active ability. In Artifact 1, you just have to wait for the 2 turn and you'll be able to use Force Staff. But in Artifact 2, you have to wait for the 2 turn and spend the mana to do it as well. So you can see that items are pretty costly in the sense that you have to pay for gold, time, and also mana when you want to use it. You can see a lot of the hero abilities also have now, well, not all of them, because I don't think it applies to Aura, but for all of the active abilities, all of the skills also have a mana attached to it. This means that games won't go on infinitely, because every time you take an action, you'll lose 1 mana, and eventually you'll run out of mana and you go straight to combat, right? You also will avoid scenarios where you have short sword stalling. I don't know if you guys watch a lot of Artifact 1 games. What players ended up doing in the late game is when they want to stall and when they want to bait out their opponent in terms of making the first move, they would have a lot of these like short swords that they bought from their shop. And they would just keep re-equipping the short sword over and over again and replacing the previous short sword essentially for free, right? But now you can't do that. You can't stall. Well, if you have infinite mana, then you could stall. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be hard to get infinite mana. Also, you'll know that the game has a finite length, right? On turn 2, when you have 4 mana, you know at most you can make four plays. Like, dude, unless you have like CM shenanigans where you get to refresh your mana, but that's besides the point. This also makes a game much shorter to watch, much shorter to play. So I think that's pretty important as well. But let's actually talk about my final point, which is what I think the new skill testing thing in Artifact 2. Like I said, it's not going to be initiative anymore because it's not nearly as important. It's still there. It's still key to know about, especially when you're trying to maintain initiative to play Annihilation on the start of a turn, for example. But I think sequencing and playing, having a good mana management is now the new skill. And what I mean by sequencing is the following. Let me give you an example. Let's say on turn 3, you have 5 mana, right? You have a couple of options in your hand, including a play that costs you 4 mana, and then another play that costs you 1 mana. Well, how should you, like, in what order do you play those two? You could actually have an argument for either order, right? You could say that, oh, maybe I should play the 4 mana play first because it's a much more impactful play. I could play it when I have the initiative to really heavily influence the lane that I'm playing that into. That's a very solid argument. Or the other way to go about it is I should make the 1 mana play, because by using the 1 mana play, I affect the board just slightly. I wait for my opponent to spend their mana, and then I could use that 4 mana in a lane that, you know, they're really weak at and just really punish them there. Really, the two scenarios I brought up is really just, and when it comes down to the real game, it just depends, right? It depends on what the situation is. And you could really make a key or a good case for both arguments of which play you should make. And I think that's what the new Artifacts skill is going to be, and that's what makes a game fun. I think when it comes to sequencing your play, this will make Artifact closer in terms of games like Magic, where you have 1 mana pool for 1 turn. And especially in Magic the Gathering, when you are both using instances and trying to fight on the stack, it's fairly similar to what we're doing now, where you're playing one card, your opponent gets to respond by one card, and the limiting factor is really your hand size, but also your mana pool, right? If your opponent taps out essentially on turn 3 by using all 5 of their mana on one card, well, you'll feel a lot safer to know that they have no other play to really mess you up. You could do really whatever you want now for the rest of the turn. So kind of baiting out your opponent, or holding back your cards, holding back your mana is, I think, the most skill testing thing in Artifact. But of course, take everything I said with a grain of salt, because this is just me and theorizing on a very high level without having a lot of repetition in Artifact 2. So that's going to do it for my discussion for the Artifact 2.0 blog that was posted on April 20th. I think the game is going in a good direction. Now 2 blog posts, we saw that the devs care about the game, making it really go a lot faster, a lot quicker. They care about making the game a lot easier to learn and a lot easier to play. And I think these are very, very important things to think about when you're trying to attract new player bases. And in terms of the complexity, I think the game will still be extremely complex, but Artifact 1.0 was perhaps a bit too complex for a lot of the players out there, and I think we're going in a very good direction. So that's going to do it for this video. Next week, I'm going to talk about the Heroes We Need blog post, where they talked about their design in terms of how they're looking to design hero cards, the hero stats, and hero abilities. And I think that that's also a good time to look at all of the heroes that they've posted so far, because they posted a bunch of heroes on the Heroes We Need blog, but they also posted quite a bit of heroes on, I believe, just like the first major blog post, right? There's like 6 more heroes we could talk about. I'll probably dive into some of these abilities and whether I think these abilities are strong or not. Oh, one more thing, I kind of forgot to mention this point. Remember when I said initiative is nowhere as important because of items such as Blink Squirrel? In the new Artifact world, I do believe that it's going to be a lot easier to move your heroes cross lane. You can see on Timbersaw, on Marana, they have innate abilities that allow you to move cross lane. So even if they kill your hero with initiative, you could still get your heroes onto the other lanes. I use Blink Squirrel as the example there, but you can see a lot of heroes have the ability to Blink Squirrel their way into the lane as well. So that's why initiative is not as important. But okay. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm having a lot of fun thinking about these mechanics changes mean for Artifact, and both from a strategic standpoint, but also from a marketing and gameplay standpoint. And I hope you guys are having fun watching these videos as well. But until next week, I'll see you later. Bye.